So anyway, got this thing running. It's got a leaky gas cap, so I have to do something there. Maybe just swap it out with this one right here. And, oh, here goes my salamander heater. I better shut it off. Anyway, it's got that same issue I have on the blends I do where I put the X-Torque curb on original edition top ends, and that is the throttle cable gets a little kinked with the OEM bracket. It doesn't let it go right to idle, so I have to go mess around with that some. I often have better luck using the little aluminum aftermarket intake bracket. For some reason it's a little bit off geometry wise, so on a OEM build, if I use that, oftentimes it won't let the saw get the full throttle. But on these it does, but it also allows it to get to idle as well. So let me see if I can't figure that out. I'll tell you what, it's not bad. What I've been doing to solve that problem is I take that little weight cam and I file back into it some. So let me see if I can't do that without taking off the cover. We'll see if that does it. See, now it snaps. So that's getting to close the throttle. Let's see if that makes a difference in how it runs. See how it idles actually. Get started first. Boy, look how much gas it pulled right out of there immediately. So this will flood itself really fast if I'm not careful. I think this saw is going to run really strong. You know. Now this one has a black ignition system, which is one of the reasons why you'll see those numbers get up around 14,000. I was shooting for 13.7, 13.8. It's at 13.9. It's a little higher. Now you have to understand something about those no load RPMs. All that is a reference. That gets you in a ballpark, right? And usually what happens is the manufacturer gives that as a tool for a dealer to set up a saw. It doesn't mean that's the perfect tune. It just means start there, and that means based on what the manufacturers have found out over time, if you do your no load to that specific RPM thereabouts, plus or minus 100 RPMs, you've got the mixture close. But really the only way to hone it in past that is doing plug checks or dynamometer, or have it get in the cut, and if you could turn a screwdriver real time then you'd be approximating a auto-tune system, wouldn't you? So what I do is this, on these older saws, is I'll pick an RPM I'm trying to shoot for. I was looking to get somewhere around 13.7, 13.8, and that's because I opened up the transfers and it has a little bit larger carburetor, so I expected to have some more RPMs. But I'm not going to know if this works the way I want it to until I start doing plug checks. So I'll run it and then I'll check the color of the plug. And that's going to tell me whether or not my tune is where it needs to be. Boy, that thing pumps out the oil. So this saw here, as it sits, just to review, that saw has a brand new set of OEM cases. When I did this build first time out, I did it last year, 2019, I think it was, maybe a year and a half ago, on Chinese cases. And that's an OEM 48 millimeter original edition Husqvarna 365 special top end. And I did some mods. I flared the bottoms of the transfers to make them match up with the cases better. I opened up the transfers to get a little more flow and did a muffler mod and blended the larger carburetor off an X-Torque onto the standard original edition intake manifold. And the way I did that was I had to cut the tab off that holds the pulse line. So that's open in there. It's not the best. Now another thing I did here, really subtle, is I used a different tube for the pulse than stock fuel line. This one's a little stiffer, has a little stiffer wall. And I'm going to try those. It has a brand new fuel line, has a new sprocket, you know, but it has a lot of used parts in there as well. And one of the significant things I'm testing with this build, with those RPMs, is the semi-ceramic bearings. Now I had gotten those a couple years back and never put them in a saw. And since I wanted to get this saw in a higher RPM configuration than the stock, I figured that was a great place to start testing those ceramic bearings. So that's what this saw is. I think I'm going to find a bar and chain for it and go out and cut down a tree with it. How's that? That'll give us a sense of how it runs. It's still running a little fat in the bottom, and I'm going to leave it because it makes it easy to start. But one thing I've noticed is it'll flood really fast if I leave that choke on too long. And maybe I have to get in there and change the metering lever a little bit on that carb. I'll get into that later, but right now I just want to let it run for a little bit. It runs good enough, it starts pretty quick. It's got the RPMs where I want to be, and I want to take a look at the plug after I've run it for, you know, an hour or two, a couple of tanks, and then begin to hone in on the tune, get it right. So that's the overview. So I've got this Oregon VersaCut bar. It does not have a burr, even though it's got a fair amount of wear. Those things last pretty good. So I'll put that one on for test, you know. And all right, before I go out on the hill, I've got this saw I want to tear down and see. See, that's scary. One of my first clues that it's had a hard life is obviously it's not very clean. And check that grind on the chain. Let me see if I can bring it up to you. And being a young man, he's a little bit stronger than this old man, and he'll put these damn things on to where I almost can't get them off. Wow. Alright, now I can get the impact driver. If I can't get them off with this, they are too tight. Alright? There's your first clue. could be one of those saws where the damage is significant enough it really needs to go to the junk pile. Now this is a 390 and the model year, well, I don't know what the model year is because the tags wore off, but if I remember correctly, I put a boot in this saw in 2017. That was 3 years ago. This is one of the ones that had the white dot boots that split in the wintertime. I think this saw was new back in like 2016 or 17 time frame. So it's got 3 or 4 years on it. Start breaking it down just a little bit. See what we got. It has a sound of catastrophic failure. Hear it? That has the sound of a bad wrist pin, bearing, possibly, or a bad crank. Alright, we're back on this clanking. Hear it? So is it wrist pin or is it rod? Take a guess now, bud. Let's get in there and see. Oh boy. That's a rod bearing, buddy. Top end doesn't look that bad. It survived. Needs a crank. Get in there so you can see what a bad rod bearing looks like. That is catastrophic failure. The problem is, you know, I could probably put a crank in there and get this thing running. The problem is, really, when you've had that kind of a failure in a saw, you need to do the main bearings and the crank. So, alright, let me go out and cut some wood. Got about a half hour to pull this off if I can do it. But I just want to test that darn saw. So, I've got a tree in here I had planned to take down anyway. You can probably see it, it's got a dead top. Geez, I don't know if I've got a wedge. It's going to probably need to be wedged over. But if I can get it, oh, there's one right there, it can come down. So I can get those down, or at least that one down, in this half hour, and then I get a chance to test that saw. That would be the definition of win for me. I'm damn curious. See, these are ash trees that are going away. I don't know if you can see the one with the dead top. This one right here. Dead top. I'm going for that one. It's actually a good sized tree when you get right to it. So, anyway, I'm going to go set up and see if I can get the tree down. That's what makes me nervous. I mean, that would be easy right there. If it would go the right way. Now, this is the one I want to go for. But if you look up there, there's a branch that's just waiting to come down. It's just sitting right there. It's going to come right down. So what I need to do is get that tree moving, and once I get it moving, get the heck out of here. Now, one of the things I'm going to get from all the experts is where I should cut that tree. Well, the place I need to cut that tree is where barbed wire isn't. So that's what's going to determine where I make the cut on that tree. I obviously can't cut in there all barbed wire. So I cut a flare. I'm going to do a face cut right here, and then I'm going to bore cut back into the tree, and then I'm going to come to this other side so I can escape out that way, out from underneath that branch right there, and then release it from over here. So let me get the camera where I can show you the face cut and the bore cut.
Yeah, this was one of those days that was not meant to be easy for whatever reason. So I threw that chain, and I guess I got tools in the shop over the hill there. If I really want to get after it, I don't know. Maybe I'll just go home, hole up, and stay warm for the evening because it's getting cold. Snow's coming in. Talk to you later. Bye for now. That saw's a runner. Runs good.